Now, where did I put this? Here it is. Welcome to the Toolbox. Addendum. Tools for life and everything in between. Stuff you can use or toss. It's up to you. Hey everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of Tools for the Toolbox Addendums. I'm going to be talking about something a little bit challenging for a lot of us, I think, and definitely challenging for me, so that's why I'm going to get into it. What we're going to be talking about is Remembrance Day and anniversaries and just, really hard times where the weight of the world is overwhelming and the weight of our memories is overwhelming. And I'm going to get into some tools that I use to help get through those periods of time because they are manageable given the right time and the right tools. For me, Remembrance Day is rather challenging. Multiple reasons. Same reasons a lot of us vets have. We are reminded continually of those we served with, the sacrifices that were made over many years, and the loss of good friends, and loss of mentors, and the loss of brothers and sisters, and it is an especially difficult time when you're retired. When you're in the military, there's a sequence to it where everybody gets a little tipsy early on. We all have our uniforms ready, and you're spit shining your boots, and you're polishing your gear, and you're putting your regalia on, and all this other stuff. And it's not very challenging because you can just directly, you can kind of turn your brain off, and you can just keep going through the sequence, and then you go to your designated town, and you do your parade, and then you go to Legion and you get fucking hammered, and you tell stories, and you talk shit, and you laugh, and you remember, and it's mostly good times. And then you get on the bus again and you get taken right back to the unit, and then you get home, or you keep drinking, or you go back to the shacks or whatever, and you wake up the next morning hungover as shit, and you start over. When you're not in the military anymore, though, it is a little different. There's a lot more alone time. There's a lot more time to think and dwell and, unfortunately, rehash all of the really negative places that none of us like to go. For me, I've had a hard time with this since I got out because my birthday's also in November, and it's also because there's a sequence for me that kind of sucks. So Halloween is always on the 31st, and I've never been a big fan of Halloween. Even as a kid, I didn't really enjoy it all that much. And now as an adult, even though I have 2 kids, I don't like the fact there's chaos. And it's fun for the kids. My wife is great, and she makes sure that the boys always have a good time, and it's really nice to see. But for me, there's people screaming and lots of people running around, and people coming, their kids darting in and out behind me and through me and all around. So it's very challenging and I get triggered very easily during those time periods. So usually it's left up to my wife to kind of pick up the slack, and sometimes my other family will come out and help and take the boys out. And when I do go out with them, what I basically do is just sit in behind everybody and kind of let them do their thing. But it's still very challenging. So throughout the night, usually I get kind of worse. I have very negative feelings throughout the evening as it goes on. And then by the next day, like after the evening's over and I try to relax and go to bed, and I wake up the next morning and I'm still pretty agitated. But it's also November, which means that Veterans Week is going to be starting up shortly, and I also have my birthday on the 6th, so it's very challenging to to be excited about it, because it's usually right at the beginning of Veterans Week when everything else is, you can't really get away from it if you're going to use any type of media, social media, TV, radio, even if you read newspapers still or magazines, there's this continual push for remembrance, which is fantastic. It's great. That's what it's there for. But it's very challenging when you're by yourself and you don't have many people to reach out to at the time. So, usually I'm agitated for a couple of days after Halloween, and then I make it to my birthday, and I'm usually, again, not in a very good mood, but, again, my wife just wants to make it special, and my kids want to make it special, and they want to let me have a great day, and, people wish me happy birthday, and, it's all very much appreciated, but it's very difficult to deal with because I'm still dealing with survivor's guilt. I'm still dealing with a little bit of a inferiority complex, and it's very difficult to be celebrated for, just being. And of course, it's right at the beginning of Remembrance Week, which makes it even more challenging because I'm thinking more about my friends and I'm thinking more about all of the others that aren't around anymore. And then I spend so this year, unfortunately, I was really bad and I basically had a horrible, horrible day. And my wife and kids did everything humanly possible to try and make my day go a little bit easier. But I just wasn't having it. And I kind of ruined my own birthday for them because I was so miserable, which is challenging in and of itself. And then made the next few days, again, kind of jacked up and getting worse and worse and worse as Remembrance Day comes forward. Now I was still able to, force myself to do some things. Like my son's school wanted me to talk to the students about Remembrance Day, so I made a video for them. And, I still had podcasts to get out, so I was working on that and trying to busy myself. But all I wanted to do was hide in a hole for a week and just not, just sit in the dark and not have to deal with any of this shit. But I didn't. I kept moving forward. I kept doing something. I needed something to check off, some box I could tick and say, okay, I've got something done today. At least I've got one thing done today. This year, especially with the difficulties of COVID, there wasn't much for ceremonies. I was lucky enough to kind of sneak in at one of the Legion ceremonies and still participate, which was nice as the tradition kind of kept going. But the real trick was Remembrance, right? So I found some guys hanging out locally, and we hung out and we had a great time, and we drank and we laughed and we told stories and shot the shit and did all that stuff. But none of us got really hammered by any means. We weren't getting carried out by each other from the bar. We weren't out till 2 o'clock in the morning. Everyone was kind of done at about 8, which is showing us our age now. But it still sucks. Those days are very hard. And I want to talk about that a little bit because we all go through those time periods. We all have anniversaries of losing friends. We all have difficult time periods that make us feel like crap. We have depressive episodes. We have, anxiety attacks. We have days where we just don't get anything done. And you know what? All those things are okay. And it took me a long time to kind of realize that those are normal. It's normal to have days that you don't want to do anything. It's normal to want to hide in a hole for a while. It is normal to not want to leave the house for fear of freaking out or beating somebody up or giving in to that rage that you're feeling. And I found that the key thing for me, at least, was the check in the box. That was one for me. So I'm task oriented. I really like having jobs. I like being able to say, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and then move on. And the trick was, for the first few years after I got out and I was really, I was deep into post-traumatic stress and dealing with the symptoms regularly throughout a long period of time. The real challenge was when I didn't get anything done, I would just beat the shit out of myself. I'd be calling myself all sorts of names and everything you can imagine. And you know what? I used to be an instructor for recruits, so I can come up with some pretty imaginative shit, as we all can. But yeah, I would just tear myself apart. I would tear myself down, and it would make everything worse because you're not gaining anything. And regardless of how much I got done, even if I was pushing myself to get work done to the point that I was worse the next day, I still felt like crap because it wasn't as much as I wanted to get done, or it wasn't as much as I thought was necessary. And so it was a very negative cycle because I would beat myself up about it and I'd feel horrible the next day and I'd get even less done, and then I would beat myself up about it again and I would feel fucking worse the next day, and I would fall into these deep depressive episodes that ended up with me in some pretty dark places. And it's challenging to get out of those. And my doctor suggested this, and I had a friend tell me as well, and was just get something done. If you can check one thing off, like what is that book by Admiral McRaven? But he's talking about making your bed first thing in the morning every day, because that's at least one thing you've done right, and it's done. And if your day goes absolutely horribly, then you get to come home to a made bed. So win-win, right? And so I started doing stuff like that, and I started making sure that I had at least one thing that I could say I've done that day. And if it's as simple as, making the bed, okay, well, I made the bed this morning. That's one thing more I did today that I could have not done. And, just accepting that was a big part of that. Being able to accept that one thing is better than none is challenging, especially for military, especially for army guys, because all we want to do is complete the mission. We want to be able to get, okay, done. We've moved on. This is done. We can now get the next job. Let's fucking kick ass. And I've said this a few times to many people over the years, is that once you're out, let me rephrase. While you're in, it is 100% mission before self across the board. And it has to be. That's the way it works. And the reason it works that way is because everybody is doing it. We're all part of that system. So we're all going to get that job done regardless of how we feel, regardless of how tired we are, regardless of whether things hurt. It doesn't matter. We're just going to get the fucking job done. Because once it's done, then we can deal with something else. And then once we get out, what's left? What do we do next? What's the next mission? Well, guess what? The mission is you. You are the mission. So, or how do you deal with the fact that you're the mission when usually the mission comes first? Or usually the mission comes before you do. And now you are the mission? Well, guess what? You have to come first. And it is a very, very difficult habit to get out of making sure that the job gets done before you do. Because now you have to come first. Before anything else, it has to be you. That doesn't mean you get to be selfish. I mean, you're going to need to be a little bit, but you have to be able to recognize what it is you need. Right? If that need is to get to the gym every day, guess what? Get to the gym every day. It becomes my doc calls them non-negotiables. And those non-negotiables are critical on the bad days. They are absolutely critical on your bad days, bad periods, bad timing, whatever it is. You have to have those. So for some people, it might just be having a shower that day. It might just be getting to the gym. It might be having your bed made. It might be making sure your kids' schoolwork is all done. And just put them in terms of absolutely, this is mission critical. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Mission critical. Nothing else works unless this does. And it's absolutely true, because nothing else will work during those time periods when you are down and when you are out and you are beating yourself up and you are tired and all you want to do is crawl into a hole and let the world pass you by. You are critical. You are mission critical. You have to move forward. So during this time period over this week that I was feeling like shit, every day I had to have something done. So the first one I did was make the bed. It's super easy. I just pulled a little bit of military memory out and was just like, as soon as I got out of bed, I put the blankets back up and tucked them in and make them nice and clean. And it's done in like 15 seconds as soon as you wake up. And then the next part was toiletries, right? Just brush your teeth, get some deodorant on, get a clean shirt, pants, socks. Okay, start moving forward. I had to be very critical of my time. So my kids wanted my attention. My wife needed help. I would do what I could. And if I got to a point where I said, I would need a break, I would tell my wife, I'm like, okay, I need 5 minutes. And I would go and take 5 minutes. And I'd play a stupid game on my phone, or I'd read a bit of a book, or I'd send a couple emails, or, just something mindless, something monotonous that can bring everything down. A couple times I had to do some mindfulness exercises, squeezing your toes, then your heel, or then your ankles, then your calves, then your knees, then your quads, your back, all the way up and all the way down, and doing breathing exercises and whatever. Like we all have these different tools to use when you're agitated. And I would take the 5 minutes because I needed the 5 minutes, and then I would get back in the game and I would keep working. If I needed more time, I would tell them I needed more time. If I was still agitated when I went back in, I would either tell them, or my wife sometimes told me, she said, no, you need to go take some more time. And I would. Because I've recognized in the last little bit, again, that I am mission critical. The rest of my life doesn't work if I'm not working. So I need to be able to work. And I really wanted to get into this because I think a lot of us struggle in these periods. Now, the first part is, recognizing that you are mission critical and really, really not just understanding it, but accepting it. That you are not expendable. That no one else is going to come and take the job if you're not there. It's got to be you, and you got to be able to do it. So we got to make sure that you are capable of doing it with your non-negotiables. Make sure you wake up, either, pick something, either the night before or during the day or in a period where you're feeling okay and want to get something done. There you go. That's one thing you can get done. Write a list of non-negotiables. 1, 2, maybe 3 things that absolutely have to happen through that day. If you need a nap, put it in there. If you need you need a walk, gotta take the dog out, doesn't matter. Write it down, make sure it's in your head, it's a non-negotiable. This will happen, period. The second part is self-talk. And this is so hard for myself. I mean, I can only talk about myself, but I still struggle with self-talk. I will light myself up worse than any drill instructor has ever done to me. Worse than any time I've been ripped to pieces by course staff or, NCOs. Doesn't matter. Like, I've been ripped asunder a couple of times. Nothing as bad as I've ever done to myself. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate, because from what I've heard and what I've talked to people about, we all kind of do it. And we just beat the shit out of ourselves for being normal, for being human beings. Now, one of the tools that, I can only talk about what I use and what I do, but it's something that maybe you haven't thought of. I actually started a ticker. You can get an app where you can actually buy one of the little clicker counter things. But I just had it in my notes, and I would, as I had my book open, if I started thinking about how stupid I was, or how slow I was, or how fucking weak I was, or the fact that I was just being a bitch that day or whatever, I would put a little ticker. I just mark it, a little note, 1, right? And on my worst days, I was into 30, 35, 40 marks in a couple hours, let alone the rest of the day. I had a whole page at one point of just little ticks, tick, 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 tick. because I just sat all day just beating the living shit out of myself. Calling myself every name under the sun that I could think of. And just being able to visualize how often that happens has made me more aware of it. And the more aware of it I am means the more I can do about it. And what I've started doing is every time that I recognize myself, kicking the crap out of myself, I think about the stuff that I've done that day. Like, what are my non-negotiables? Have I gotten those done? Okay, well, that's one thing off the list. So I can't be a complete bag of shit because I've gotten at least one thing done today. And then work through it that way, so that if I'm, beat myself about how much shit I've done today, I'd be like, okay, well, what are my non-negotiables? Have I gotten all of them done today? No? Okay, well, let's go do one of them right now, because obviously I have time. I'm sitting here beating myself up. I obviously have time to get something done, so I'll go do it. And that's been helping a little bit so for the last little while, but, it's challenging. It is not an easy thing to deal with, and it is not a fun thing to deal with. But it has to be dealt with because, as I said earlier, you are mission critical. There is no one else that's going to take over your life. There is no one else that's going to make the decisions that you need to make. There is no one else that's going to get the jobs done that you need to get done. There is only you. And just like if you're injured, if I mess up my knee and I can't really walk around, well, does continuing to walk on a messed up knee help at all? No, it makes everything worse. Does trying to do pull-ups with a broken shoulder help at all? No, it doesn't. You're just making everything worse. If you got a bad back and it's very difficult to walk and you decide you're going to throw a ruck on and go for a march, is that going to help? No, it's not. I mean, it's the same thing with both your emotional and psychological health. If you are beat down, if you have given everything you have just to keep moving for many days in a row, and you are just done, you feel like absolute shit and you just need a break, and then you keep working, that's not going to help you. If you have one bad day and then just give up tomorrow, like, oh, fuck, I'm just not going to do anything today. I feel kind of tired. I'm not going to do it. That's not helping, right? You got to keep moving forward. But if you have been pushing yourself day after day after day after day, and everything just keeps getting worse, guess what? You need rest. Because you haven't given yourself time to heal. You haven't given yourself time to rest. These things are required. You can only push yourself for so long. And once you get to your limit, then what? I know for myself, I push myself to a point where my back goes out and I can barely walk. Or I'll push myself into a depressive state where I'm basically numb. And, I'll watch my kids play and laugh and feel nothing. And that's, when you remember those time periods later on, I start to beat myself up about it afterwards. And, I tell myself how bad of a father I am, or, you can't even laugh at one of their jokes, or, I think about how I'm negatively impacting their growth as they're getting older, watching me just kind of kick the living shit out of myself. So what I've had to start doing, again, is I use my non-negotiables, make sure that I have stuff done. I've started tracking my negative thought pattern, and those two have helped a good amount. But honestly, working with a therapist has been probably the greatest tipping point that really helped me see that growth or betterment was possible. And, I'll do another episode about doctors at some point, because I got some stories about those. But the one thing I got to say is, again, you make it a non-negotiable. Find a doctor that you actually like, and that you find a doc that you can actually talk to. Now, for me, I needed someone that was going to challenge me. So when I made a statement like civvies are fucking retarded and they don't know fucking anything. My first doc would have said, oh, well, that's understandable coming from where you came from and blah, 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 blah. And that's not helpful. My next doc, who I talked to, just, wanted to basically prescribe me. She was like, what type of symptoms can I prescribe a drug to cover? And then the third doc I went and saw, finally, actually, I looked up a trauma specialist here in town and went and saw her, and she has been fantastic. But what she does is she challenges me. So when I make a statement that is, it doesn't even matter whether or not the statement is true or not. If I make it finite, if I say it is either this way or that way, it is black and white, then she will challenge me on it, and she will try and open up a little gray area for something, a little bit of thought to go into the statement. So that's what I got out of it, and that has helped a lot, because when I start to get derisive and I start to try and beat myself up, I have begun to challenge myself. Where I'll say I'm a bag of shit, and then I'll be like, well, am I really? Like what have I gotten done today? Oh, well, I've gotten this done, I've gotten this done, I've gotten this done. Okay, well, my kids they're alive, they're happy, they're fed, they're in their beds. They're should be going to sleep, they're probably not. I can list off stuff that I've done, and all three of these things play into each other, and they make it so that you may have a bad week. You may have a bad period. You may go through Remembrance Day and feel like absolute crap afterwards. But there is a way forward. There is a way to continue the mission, which is you. But you have to try. You have to find something to work on. You have to find something to get better at. You have to find something, a piece of humility to say, you know what? I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I'm going to go find an expert who can help me in this particular area. So again, my three key points here that I've kind of stumbled around and eventually gotten to. Non-negotiables. You have to set them and keep them. They are critical. Second is tracking. If you have a negative cycle, something that is bad, especially self-talk, because that is, it'll erode any sense of motivation that you think you have. Negative self-talk will just beat the living crap out of you. So track it. Once you track it and you see how much you do it, you'll be able to adjust from there. And then the third part is get assistance. Learn. Try. Evolve. Get better. Okay, it's, a lot of people fear asking for help, but it's so simple. I use this analogy for a friend of mine, and then I'll shut down for the night, but this is what I told him. If you were trying to load the back of your truck, right, and you had this big-ass box that was super awkward that you couldn't really carry on your own, but you kind of could, you could move it around, and you tried to load it up into your truck, and you're just sitting there struggling, trying to get this thing in here, and you look over your shoulder, and there's like 6 dudes just standing there, staring at you, all just willing to give you a hand, but kind of laughing, kind of giggling at, like, why the fuck is this guy not asking for our help? And it's none of those guys. If you were to be like, hey man, come on, get over here, muckle on, and we'll fucking get this thing in the truck. None of them are going to think less of you for getting assistance to get it into the truck. Every single one of those people will think less of you for not asking for help. Especially, just think about trying to load a giant box into a truck. How easy is that to hurt yourself? How easy is your back to give out, or a knee to fail, or some sort of other injury to kind of kick back in just because you were too proud? This is the same concept when it comes to mental health. Nobody thinks less of anybody trying to get help. Like, at all. Think about if you were at the gym and you were struggling with trying to figure out a workout, right? Anybody that's been there a long time can see you struggling. They can see it. It's obvious. And the more you struggle, the more they want to do something, but they're not going to, it's not their responsibility to teach you how to use anything. But if you were to walk over to somebody and be like, hey man, I don't really know what I'm doing. What's a good thing to start on? Everybody would be willing to help you. Everybody. Right? Just to get you started. It's the same concept for mental health. As much as you think you're hiding it, as much as you think that, no one else sees it, as much as you think that you can handle it, cool. It's still pretty obvious to everyone else around you. I think about myself when I was just about to get posted out to Ontario. I was a miserable bag of shit. I turned down courses that I should have taken because they weren't the ones that I wanted. I bitched and complained and whined about everything that went wrong. I didn't take responsibility for fucking anything. And I was angry every day. The moment I had to, every day I woke up and I was pissed off about going into work. And I just thought it was the fact that I worked at the place I did. And I thought it was somebody else. It was my leadership was fucking garbage, or the troops didn't fucking do what I told them to, or whatever, right? It was always somebody else's fault. And it wasn't until I got to Ontario and I was an instructor and I was enjoying myself. I was actually enjoying being there. I woke up every morning. I was excited to get classes started. I was excited to teach these new recruits all kinds of stuff. And I was still angry. And I was still not sleeping. And I was still exhausted all the time. And I finally talked to my wife and said, I'm still not sleeping out here very well. Maybe it's the mattress, or maybe it's the room, or maybe it's whatever, the fact that you guys aren't here. And she was like, well, maybe you should just go see a doc about it. Like, go find out, maybe it's a sleep issue. And I was like, that's a good point, actually. Maybe I should go see a doctor about that. Maybe it is just a sleep issue. Maybe I have sleep apnea or whatever. But then I went and saw the doctor. And through talking to him, we started to recognize that it wasn't the sleep that was the issue. It was my sleep pattern. And the fact that I was still having nightmares is the fact that I wasn't sleeping fully throughout the night. I was waking up exhausted, and then I would push my bodies to the fucking limit. And then I would be so exhausted that I'd rack out for 2-3 hours, and then I would have a nightmare, and I'd wake up again and do it all over again. But everybody, it was obvious how messed up I was. It was obvious. But it was nobody else's responsibility but mine. And as soon as I recognized that it was my responsibility, as soon as I recognized that it was something that I needed to do something about, and I started, I saw the benefits. I saw getting better. And it was a long haul, but it was worth it. I mean, I'm still working through it now, and it's been almost 7 years now since I've been out of the military. And I'm still working on it. But you know what? I am much better than I was 5 years ago. I'm much better than I was 2 years ago. And it all started from just going to see somebody who was a professional. I went to see someone who was the expert in the field. You don't ask the infantry. You don't go down to the regular line rifle unit and say, hey, private, what do you know about C4? Because he doesn't know anything about C4. You go talk to the engineers if you want to talk C4. If you want to talk tanks, you go see the armored guys. If you want to talk artillery, you go talk to the artillery guys. If you want to talk close with and destroy the enemy, you go talk to the infantry. They are specialists. And when it comes to the brain, when it comes to the psychology, you go and see a specialist. If you break your arm, you don't go talk to the dude beside you and go, hey man, my arm's broken, can you fix it? Unless that person is a doctor. That's what they're there for. The common point here is that it all starts with you. It all starts with you having the humility to say, I need a hand. And that's it. Anyway, I'm going to quit ranting for the night. Again, thank you guys for listening to this. I really appreciate all the support, and hopefully we're all learning something. Have a good night. That concludes this episode of The Toolbox. I want to thank you for listening. I hope you were able to use some of the information that was offered. I want to thank all those putting it on the line for us every day. Military, veterans, first responders, and public servants. Keep up the good work. I look forward to bringing you more tools for your toolbox. And until next time, stay open, stay humble, and stay focused. Chimo.